So you bought a Nissan Navara and you want to go off-road, but you're not sure how capable it is. Well, today we're going to run you through some of the off-road features in this car, and we'll try and make sure we don't get it stuck. So this is the Navara ST-X. It sits right at the top of the Navara tree and it kicks off from $51,990 plus on-road costs. This one has the auto, which will set you back an additional $2,500. Under that bonnet is a 2.3 litre twin turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine, makes 140 kilowatts of power, 450 newton meters of torque, and a bragging point, it's the same engine they use in the Mercedes-Benz X-Class. So they're the basics. Now, what if you want to head for a weekend away? You want to know how capable this thing is off-road? Well, I've set up a small set of off-road tests for us to figure out just how tough the Navara is.
First up is an offset mogul that will test how well the traction control systems work, along with how effective the differential lock is. Then it's onto a water crossing to see how well the Navara copes with wading through water. It wouldn't be a four-wheel drive test without a steep hill, so we'll test the Navara going both up the hill and down the hill. Finally, we'll drive over some rocks to see how the Navara fares with jagged terrain. Before we get started, it's worth noting the Navara is a full-time two-wheel drive and comes with a high and low-range four-wheel drive system, plus a rear differential lock and hill descent control.
Figuring out which four-wheel drive mode to use when you're stuck is entirely pointless, so we need to figure these things out before we get into the situation so that the four-wheel drive system can sort it all out for us. So Navara comes with a bunch of four-wheel drive modes. What we're going to do right now is demonstrate the difference between them, and we're going to use something called an offset mogul. Now, this isn't a very tricky course that we're using here, but it will push the car's four-wheel drive system to its limits just because of the terrain that we're asking it to go on. So first up, I'm going to go in two-wheel drive. I'm going to leave traction control on because these cars are quite clever in terms of their electronics and we'll be able to see it working as well, and we'll be able to tell the difference between them. Okay, here we go. So with enough momentum, you'll easily clear this, but we're setting it up just so we have a tyre in the air and we can demonstrate the traction control system and the limitations of two-wheel drive. So even right now, I'm struggling on the way in, rolling back. Here we go, coming forward. Okay, so now we're halfway through this. Now, this is the bit where we're kind of diagonal here. We've got the car seesawing, and we're not going anywhere. My foot is flat to the ground, but the traction control system is slowly working away here so that with a touch of the wheel turn there, it's just getting over it. But we're putting a lot of strain on the car. The wheels are spinning, creating a bit of tyre smoke. It's not really what you want. Let's give that another shot, this time in four-wheel drive mode. Now we're in four-wheel drive mode. The system is sending torque to the front and rear axle as well, but there's no differential locks on the front or rear active at the moment. So we're going to get into a similar situation here, but you'll see that it gets through a little easier. So you can see here we're in that position now with the car diagonal. And with a light bit of throttle, you can hear the system working, traction control intervening, and then it crawls through that with torque going to all four wheels, no dramas at all. Let me show you the easiest way to do this though, and that is using the rear differential lock. This effectively splits torque 50-50 between the rear wheels, so they're always turning regardless of the level of surface that we're on. This means that it should power through this. Now, the Navara needs this in low range for the rear differential lock to activate. So into neutral, low range on, press the rear differential lock button, put it into drive, and Bob's your uncle, that rear diff lock is now active. So let's give this another shot. When it's active as well, it disables ABS and it also turns off stability control. Okay, so same thing again. Oh, this is literally a piece of cake. I'm just breathing on the throttle here and it is walking through without any dramas at all. That shows you that with the right configuration before you head into a problem, you will get out without any dramas. So on your weekend adventure, you've come across a pond and you need to drive through it. That's where wading comes into play. Navara offers 600 millimeters of wading depth. It's kind of the equivalent to going swimming at the pool. You need to know how deep it is before you jump in. Now, in terms of wading, we want to do a few things here. We want to make sure the car's in four-wheel drive, so we'll flick this switch over to four-wheel drive. Depending on what the surface is beneath the water, I'd also go into low range and use something like second gear, just to make sure you have enough torque to not get stuck and also to make sure you have enough torque to get through if you run into any dramas. And when you're traveling through the water, you want to make sure the bow of the wave is ahead of the car. That affords you a little less depth at the airbox as well, so it gets you through nicely. And you never want to stop. You just want to keep that momentum up. And always do a check before you go in. So I've already checked this one. We know that it's just under 600 millimeters deep, so let's give it a shot. So I'll turn in here, make our approach, and drop the front end in. Keep in mind when you drop the front end in, it's going to be a little bit deeper sometimes. Okay, piece of cake here. I can already feel the resistance, so a little harder on the throttle there. Got the bow of the wave just in front of me. Nice and choppy through here, and out we go. Low range also comes in handy on steep hills, and I've found a whopper. Not only is it steep, it has a very loose rock surface on the bottom, which means we're going to be pushing the Navara to its absolute limits. I have it in low range. I have the rear differential locked. This is going to require a lot of commitment. You cannot stop on a hill like this because the chances of getting moving again are very slim. So we're going to keep the foot in it and we will see how we go. Let's give it a crack. Okay, so we are approaching now. It's going to touch down a little here. There it is, and straight in it. Okay, it's doing okay. Oh, losing momentum. Come on, come on. Oh. Just over the top, there it is. Wow, the footage is not even going to make that hill look steep, but that was absolutely steep as. So Navara has done a good job there. It kept bringing torque as well. I noticed earlier when we were doing a hill, it was kind of changing gears randomly. This time around, it just plowed up there without any dramas at all. That is very impressive.
Going up a hill means you also need to come back down. The Navara's hill descent control works well, but it can be a little bit noisy and you can't control the descent rate.
So we've mastered climbing a hill, going through water, and also which four-wheel drive systems to use. But what about rocks? These can be really dangerous, especially if you're on road tyres. So I recommend going into 4 low, so that's the low range. The reason I say that is you don't get surges of torque and the car will remain steady over this stuff. And the tip here is to not go too quick. You'll see here with just some steady momentum, it's coming over these rocks nicely. Keep your thumbs on the outside of the wheel because the wheel can change direction very quickly. By staying on the outside, it can flick around in the palms of your hands without any dramas at all. And just minor throttle inputs. Don't go throwing the car over these things. It's actually pretty comfy. Look at that, piece of cake. So what about the negatives? Well, there really is only one that stands out for me, and that's how slow some of that four-wheel drive gear is to activate. I mean, that rear differential lock, you press the button and you sit there and wait. It almost feels like an eternity for it to switch on. But that aside, the Navara really is a perfect balance between work vehicle and then fun vehicle for weekends away. It really can go anywhere and it's great fun to drive as well. If you want to read more about the Nissan Navara, head to caradvice.com. But in the interim, head to our YouTube channel, check out some of our other videos and don't forget to subscribe.